Okay, so this video is going to look at an analysed cash book for Stephen and Sarah Riley for the month of November 2026. So we have information provided to us in the question, we've got our headings provided to us, and we've got transaction amounts that we have to post to the account. So this video will talk you through how to put those figures into the account and also how to balance an analysed cash book as well. So I've actually filled the whole thing in for you, but I will take you through it now. So on the top here, we can see, well, the question says, complete the cash book for Stephen and Sarah Riley for the month of November 2026, and use the following headings in your analysed cash book. So on the receipt side, in other words, the money coming in, this is always called the debit side. So debit is to the left as money coming in, and credit then is the payment. It's money going out, and it's always credit to the right. So debit to the left and credits to the right. So going through the headings first and foremost. So date and details were given to you on the debit side, and date and details were given to you on the credit side. And as you can see here, I'm just trying to kind of a line down this here, just a squiggly line here, just to indicate to you looking at the video that that's the debit side, and then that's where the credit side will start. So the heading is used, well, total isn't given to us. Now, usually a question will have something like a total column, and we'll have a bank column if things were either coming into a person's bank account, like getting paid wages via PayPath or something like that. Or alternatively, if you were tapping your card to pay for something, or if there's direct debits and standing orders out of your accounts that were paying for something as well. You may have cash if it's money is given to you in actual cash, like a birthday card with €50 in it or something like that, and that's coming into your household or business. Or if you go to the shop and you buy your groceries in cash. Now, because bank or cash aren't given to us, we're just going to use the heading total instead. So the total amount of money that's either come in or out of the household. So you'll see on the debit side, there's a total column, and on the credit side, there's also a total column as well. Now, the other columns have the headings that are given to you in the question. So as I said, receipts is the debit side, and the headings used there are wages and presents, because this is where Stephen and Sarah Riley will receive money from. It will come into their household. And on the credit side, you'll see rent, lunch, gas, phone. So we have our total again, and then rent, lunch, gas, and phone. So this is basically what they've spent their money on for that period of time. So looking at our transactions, if we start on the 1st to the 11th, the opening balance is €90. So what happens there is on the 1st to the 11th, they start off €90 money. So that's their money that they own. Debit is positive for us. So debit is what they own. So it's €90. If it ever said, opening credit balance, well, you put the opening balance on the credit side, or if it ever said bank overdraft and there's a bank column, that would mean you'd owe it back to the bank, and that would also be a balance BD on the credit side. But more often than not, the questions have a balance BD, and it's the first figure you put in of €90. The balance BDs never go anywhere else; they'll always just go into the total column. So they don't go into any other category because it's just your money that you start with. So that's the first transaction there. The 1st to the 11th, balance BD, €90. Next transaction is Stephen's wage. So he's receiving money there. Money's coming into the household, so that will be a debit. And an extra kind of tip for you as well, even look at the columns and the headings across the top. There is a wages one there, so it will go into the debit side. So the total amount that comes into the house is 1345. So the total will always go into the total column. And where then has that also come from? It's come from wages. So the 1345 goes into the wages column as well. Buying lunch, well, that's paying for something. So that's money going out. So that's a credit. So you'll see the first credit transaction here, 3rd of the 11th, lunch. €15 is being paid. The total was €15. And again, which column did that go to? Was it rent, lunch, gas, or phone? So it was lunch clearly, which is €15. The phone credit, again, money going out is credit. So 4th of the 11th, phone credit, €40. And that's in the phone. Sarah's wage is next. So again, Sarah receiving money this time. So that's another debit. 6th to the 11th, wages, 1,256. And that's obviously from the wages. So 1256. The paying of rent, 8th of the 11th. So that's paying money. So that's a credit. So 8th of the 11th, rent, €800 in total. And which column does that go to? It goes to the rent. Gas bill is the 15th of the 11th. The gas bill, it was €35, and that will go to the gas heading. Buying lunch is 26th of the 11th, €15 again, and that goes to the lunch column. And the last transaction, receiving birthday money, so that's coming in. So debit money coming in, 28th of the 11th. Birthday money, €250, and that's from the presents column. The reason you do that is because you want to see at the end of the week or at the end of the month, although all that money has come into a household, where has it come from? So you'll be able to track, well, that's from wages and that's from presents, or if there are expenses, how much are we spending on rent, how much are we spending on lunch, how much is being spent on gas or phone or whatever. What generally happens is that perhaps if you spend too much money in a month, you might need to make cutbacks. Well, that will tell you, for example, if the lunch there was a couple of €100 or something like that, and they were spending more money than they're taking in, then that could be an area that they cut back on. So as the first thing you do is you just kind of post the transaction figures into the account. So we've done it all in the black pen there. So next what you would do is you would skip a line, because the smaller side will get the balance CD, which you'll see in just a couple of moments. And what you have to do for the month is you have to total the columns for each transaction. So in other words, for phone, if we go just on the credit side, phone, because it's the easier transactions, €40 there. Well, in blue marker, look, or blue pen, it's €40 here. For gas in the month, they spent 35. For lunch, they spent 30. For rent, they spent 800. I'll skip the totals here for a moment and come over to the other side. For presents, they spent 250. And for wages, adding the totals together of 1345 and 1256, they spent 2,601. Okay, so what you've done there is you've dropped the line and you put them all on the same line. So even though the debits were only having 4 things in it and the credits had 5 things in it, you have to put all of these totals on the same line. All right, so even if there's only 2 or 3 debits and 15 credits, it wouldn't matter. Put them all on the same line, just for neatness. That's how an accountant would do their work. So now let's look at how to balance. So I've kind of written down here a few kind of tips to help you. So how you balance is you will always add the full numbers in your total column, or whether that's cash or bank, depending on the question. So it's basically this column here, the one that is on both sides. So there's a total here and there's a total here. And that's where I put a little blue kind of underlined thing for you as well. So add the totals and then write them in above the account. So in other words, nowhere on the question, but up above the question, just like a rough work page or something like that. So when I added €90, 1,345, 1,256, and 250, when I added all those numbers together, my debit was equal to 2,941. So 2,941. And I wrote that up there. The next thing I did was I added up my totals for the credit. So 15 plus 40 plus 800 plus 35 plus 15, added all those numbers together and I got 905. So C, or the credit side, is 905. So that's the first thing you'll always do when you're trying to balance an account, is add up the totals on both sides, and above it, just which one is bigger. Next, the bigger total takes over. So what this means is you got to look and say, what is bigger, the debit number or the credit number? Well, clearly the debit number is bigger. So that bigger number goes into the total there, and it goes into the total there. All right. So the 2941, as you can see, has gone here, and it's also gone here. I put an X through this because you do not show the smaller number anywhere. A lot of students, what they do is they put the 2941 here and they put the 905 here. You do not do that. It's always bigger takes over. So that 905 will never be seen again in the question. It's always the bigger takes over. So the 2941 goes on both sides. Now you can have a situation where the credit side is bigger. Same logic applies. The bigger takes over. It'll just mean the other side is smaller and we'll need the balance CD. Right, so now what we're doing is moving on to the third point. We're identifying which side is smaller. Well, we know the credit side is smaller because it was only equal to 905, which I've highlighted for you there. So the smaller side always gets the balance CD. Last day of the month, 30 to the 11th, balance CD, that's why you just kind of skip the line to leave room for that. Balance carried down, that's what CD stands for, carried down. In other words, what it really means in English is how much smaller was the smaller side. Okay, and how you get that is bigger total minus smaller total. So on a calculator, just say the 2941 minus the 905. In other words, what's the difference between the debits, what came in, and the credits, what went out? And if you do that on a calculator, you get 2036. So you need 2036 to now make these totals be the same. And again, as I said, that's basically the difference between both sides. So the 30 to the 11th, balance CD is 2036. So 2036 was needed to make those the same, which means you're starting the next month on the 1st to the 12th. You closed off in November, you're starting December. You have a balance BD, balance brought down of 2036. So now what would happen for Stephen and Sarah Riley is they would start this December with a balance of money that they have of 2036. In other words, a difference between what they took in and what they spent in November. So that's how you would do an analysed cash book and how you would balance the account as well. I will hope that helps you with your study.